Okay, everybody. This is going to be part 4 for volume 2, part 1. Okay. I'm back. Sorry to keep you all waiting. Did you finish the supply orders? Said Benno, speed walking into the room. He seemed to be concerned about having kept us waiting. I rolled all the ones that I could right now. I pointed at the stack of boards, and Benno looked at them and murmured, "That's a lot," to himself. Well, there's gonna be more when I measure some things, so get ready for that, please and thank you. How's Lutz? Said Benno. Mark answered after placing a hand on his chest. As he could already write his own name, I spent this time teaching him various other things. He is quite the fast learner, he said, but despite being praised, Lutz just gave a small nod like he was stuck thinking about something. He was probably pretty tired from studying for half an entire day. Doing things you weren't familiar with could be very tiring. I'm sure Mark explained this, but the contract magic we're about to use involves special paper and ink. Only merchants recognized as dealing with nobles are allowed to use them. Benno took out an ink jar with an odd-looking design. Its contents looked like normal ink at first glance, but apparently it was very different. He spread out the contract paper in front of me as I bubbled with curiosity. You don't mind using something this rare and expensive on us? Don't worry about it. I wouldn't use this if I didn't think it was worth it. I mean, don't worry about it all you want. I'm still going to worry. Benno dipped a pen into the jar and smoothly wrote out the contents of the contract. The ink was actually blue, not black. I stared at Benno's elegant letters, which indicated at a glance that he was very used to writing. Well, I mean, he is a noble. Of course he's going to have to be used to writing, because he's going to have to know how to do this stuff. The contents of the contract were thus. Mine fully surrenders all rights to the simple all-in-one shampoo to Benno. In return, Benno will bear all costs related to mine and Lutz's papermaking from the date of signing until their baptism. Mine will have the right to decide who will be making the paper, but Lutz has the right to sell the paper. However, neither of them have the right to decide how to price the paper, nor will they receive a percentage of the profits earned from the paper. I read the contract from top to bottom very carefully. The noble cause of ensuring the contract was written as agreed upon gave me the opportunity to fill my lungs with the smell of ink. I really want to make paper fast so I can get to making books. Mine. There a problem or something? Asked Benno, confused. I shot back to my senses. Benno was shooting me a suspicious look, and Lutz an exasperated one. I got the feeling that Lutz noticed how I'd just been enraptured by the smell of ink. Well, it's fine. It's fine. The contract has our exact agreement written on it. There's no problems at all. I'm okay with it too, said Lutz. Benno nodded at him and dipped the pen in ink again, then signed his name at the bottom of the contract. He then held out the pen with a flourish, and I took it from him after a subtle glance at Lutz. I stroked the contract parchment, which was much softer than the paper I knew, to fully appreciate its tantalizing texture before writing the pen. I dipped it smoothly in the jar to cover its tip with fresh ink and carefully wrote my name beneath Benno's, feeling the scritchy tip run along the paper. Unlike the boards I had written the supply orders on, parchment was very easy to write on. Paper is definitely superior to boards here. Here, Lutz. Lutz, whose lips were squeezed tight with nervousness, took the pen, dipped it in the jar, and wrote his own name. His poor handwriting confirmed his lack of experience, but he managed to write his name properly without any errors. Good, next step, said Benno before suddenly brandishing a knife and pricking his own finger. Mr. Benno! As Lutz and I recoiled with surprise, Benno rubbed the swelling blood with his thumb and pressed it against his signature like he was stamping a blood seal. The blue ink absorbed the red blood and turned black. Yep, that's how they do contract magic. I mean, hello. Your turn. No thanks, this magic's just scary. Benno looked at me, but on pure instinct I shook my head rapidly. Lutz, noticing that the blood dripping from Benno's knife and finger were scaring me, took out his knife with a sigh. Stick out your hand, mine. Eek! I reflexively held my hands close to me. The idea of cutting myself scared me, but so did the idea of someone else cutting me. It looked like it really hurt. You're the one who agreed to this contract, yeah? We gotta do this, and no way are you cutting yourself. I'll do it for you, so stick your hand out. Okay. I steeled my resolve and timidly held my hand out with my eyes squeezed tight. Lutz pricked my left pinky. It heated up and tingled with pain as blood dripped out of it. Put that blood on your thumb and press it against your signature. Huh. Holding back tears, I put blood on my thumb and stamped my name. The ink turned black just like the ink of Benno's signature did. While Mark stopped the bleeding and wrapped my finger with cloth, Lutz got to work cutting his finger and stamping his signature as well. Why didn't he hesitate? Isn't he scared? I'm guessing not. The moment Lutz pulled his hand back, the ink on the contract shined, then began to disappear from the paper, leaving holes behind like spots of fire, until eventually the entire contract was gone. It had all happened before my eyes. It felt like I was watching a CGI movie. Wow, fantasy indeed. I can't believe this really is a fantasy world. For a bit, I stood there staring at where the contract used to be, stunned, before suddenly coming back to my senses. How do we get personal copies of the contract now? It had burned and disappeared. The contract's complete. Breaking the contract will put your lives at risk, so don't even think about pulling anything funny. Our lives? I jumped in shock and fear, but Benno just looked down at me with an amused grin. Just don't break the contract and you'll be fine. Congratulations, you've got the insurance you wanted. Thank you very much. We appreciate your assistance. In the end, we did not receive a copy of the contract. Probably best that you didn't anyway. You wouldn't want to lose it. When we left Benno's store with the contract magic completed, we saw that the day was almost over, as shown by the gently setting orange sun. Let's and I began walking together just as we had on the way here, surrounded this time by the evening city and all its peculiarities. That took longer than I thought. Let's hurry home. The people around us were hurrying home too, making it feel like everyone was walking faster than normal. I rode the wave of people with Lutz walking by my side. A lot sure happened today, huh? You must be tired. Yeah. I still had a lot of supply orders to modify and write, but once all of them were delivered and the materials arrived, we could focus on making paper. Not to mention that the contract magic guaranteed our rights, which protected us against Benno kicking us out of the shop after we delivered the paper. Today took a lot out of me, but it was a fruitful day. Now all we have to do is make the paper, and we'll be in the clear, Lutz. Yep. Lutz was so barely audible that his voice came close to disappearing amid the footsteps of those around us before I could hear it. His curt replies worried me, since normally he went out of his way to walk at my pace and talk. Did this tire him out more than the forest? Maybe he hates writing and math now. I looked at Lutz as he walked beside me. His golden hair was lit up by the evening sun and seemed almost red in the light. But that also covered his face in shadows, such that I couldn't see his expression. Hey Lutz, what's wrong? I asked, but received no reply. Lutz opened his mouth a little as if he wanted to say something, but then shut it tight. He kept on walking in silence, thinking about something. His pace was fast, probably how fast he walked when not regulating to my pace. I had to jog a little to keep up with him. He was acting so weird that my heart stirred with anxious, worried feelings. Wait, Lutz! He stopped in the plaza and turned to look at me. His lips were squeezed tightly shut and his eyes were serious. He looked at me in the eye with the evening sun lighting half his face. Oh boy, here we go. I just noticed the question he asked. Once he steeled his resolve, he opened his mouth and a somewhat raspy voice came out. You are mine, right? Oh dear. Yeah, he should have been questioning where all this knowledge came from in the first place. So how could she have known how to make paper? Or anything of that? So of course he's going to ask this. My throat clenched. It felt as if someone had grabbed my heart and briefly stopped all the blood in my body. The stir of the crowd around me faded away, and I could hear the sound of rushing blood echoing through my ears. If you're mine, how did you talk to him like that? What? How'd you talk to Benno like that? I couldn't understand half of what you two were saying. You know so much about things I don't. You can talk to adults on equal footing, and that's not mine. That's weird. Yeah, I'm surprised nobody mentioned this sooner. Hello? This is not the mine they know. My blood kept pumping. I swallowed hard, listening to Lutz. You're definitely mine, right? Right? Although I can kind of understand him questioning it since it isn't mine, but what does he even think she is if she's not mine? What does he think? Hello? That's what I want to know. A desperation in Lutz's voice forced my dry throat to move. I played dumb and tilted my head in confusion. Who else could I be but mine, Lutz? Yeah. Sorry I'm being dumb. Was just really surprising to see you talk with an adult like that. Lutz forced something like a smile onto his face and started walking. I'd look weird if I didn't walk, too. For a second, I watched Litz's back shrink as he got further away from me. Then I started after him. It really, really messed up. I hadn't interacted with many people from this world. My lack of strength and stamina made me useless to just about everyone. I managed to help Otto at the gate, but to him, I was definitely just a kid that was a little better at math than other people. And in any case, other kids didn't see me interacting with him. On top of that, all I had done with Litz was dig up clay and cut branches. Regardless of my goal, I had basically been doing things that any kid might do. But today, in order to hold my ground against Benno's calculated merchant conniving, I had put my all into negotiating with him. I had put too much of myself out there. From Liz's perspective, I had definitely just been a weak little girl that he felt responsible for protecting. A little sister even, but not anymore. From now on, we will be interacting with adults a lot more as a matter of necessity. We'd have to give instructions to the craftsmen so they could make our tools. For instance, I would be acting less and less like a child. That said, I had no other choice if I wanted to get my hands on paper. With each passing day, I would get even further from the mind that Litz knew. How much does he even know about your character? 'Cause she was mostly in bed, sick, with a fever for the most part until you came into her body. So he hasn't had many interactions with the mind that you was supposedly in that body before you showed up. So what does he even think? I spent so much time around him that it probably wouldn't be very long before he was dead confident that I wasn't mine. What would he do if he learned my secret, I wonder? How would he react to learning I was someone else in mine's body? Ooh, yeah, I can't even remember if she told him that. On the way home, I couldn't bear to walk next to Litz, whose face was still shrouded in the evening shadows. Ooh, this is going to be awkward. Litz's most important job. Even after getting home, Litz's words kept stirring in my head. The fact he said what he did, despite struggling so much to do so, reflected just how suspicious he was. What would happen if he learned I wasn't mine? He would definitely demand that I give mine back, or otherwise blame me for making her disappear. That wasn't your thought. That wasn't your fault. That was just a coincidence that you both died at the same time and you ended up in her body. That's not your fault. You didn't choose that. I could imagine his angry, confused, fearful shouts already. Like I said, it's not your fault. If he told the truth to my family, I would have nowhere to live. Getting booted from home would be the best case scenario. If this world had a church that supported witch hunting, I might end up tortured and then murdered by people mistaking me for a demon possessing an innocent girl. Oh God. Yeah, that would be the worst case scenario. I shuddered imagining the illustrations I had seen of women getting tortured in the witch hunts of the past. I don't want to get hurt. I don't want that scary stuff to happen to me. I'd rather die than be tortured. I didn't want to get tortured or driven from my home, but if the heat inside me ate me before then, I could die feeling only the pain of a fever. If I decided to die, I had the power to throw myself into the fiery depths without any interruption whatsoever. If all else failed, I could just kill myself before getting tortured. Ooh, yeah, that's just getting to a pretty dark area. That sounded pretty extreme, but being eaten alive by the heat would be a lot more pleasant than torture. That realization calmed me down. I always had a way out. Yeah, you could always tap into the mana inside you and go out with a fever. Like mine did. The actual mine. Though she didn't choose it already. Or anyway. Not to mention that, thinking about it, the only thing that kept me tied to this world when I was on the verge of dying earlier was my promise to Lutz. I escaped the heat after thinking that I hadn't fulfilled my promise to him. I apologized for that and made the meeting happen later, so all things considered, I had no more regrets. Now that I had met Benno and papermaking was no longer a dream, I wanted to go all the way and make books, but I didn't really have much attachment to this fantasy world itself. If Lutz started avoiding me in disgust after finding out my true identity, which was very possible, my quest to make paper would fail then and there. That said, it was likely that if given a proper explanation, Lutz would stay quiet until we finished making paper and he was accepted as a merchant apprentice. I could manage until the paper was ready, and I could choose to die at any moment. Framing things that way made me feel a lot better. It wasn't entirely logical, but it worked for me. Regardless of what I did, everything relied on Lutz. My only choice was to put my all into making paper and living so that I could die at any moment without regrets. Oh, all that talk of suicide might have sounded cool in a self-sacrificial way, but really, I was feeling anything but cool. I was a bit afraid of seeing Lutz again. And indeed, when morning came the next day, I felt anxious when I met up with him. I'm going to the forest today. Gotta get some firewood, said Lutz, which made my eyes gleam with excitement. Today I had to go to Benno's store to write the remaining supply orders and teach him how to make my simple all-in-one shampoo. This was a perfect chance to finish up a lot of things which would make me look suspicious and thereby stall Lutz finding out about my secret. Okay, I'm going to Benno's. I need to write the supply orders for the screen and discuss where all the stuff will be delivered. You're going on your own? Oh, uh-huh. Is there something wrong with that? If Lutz wasn't coming with me, I had no choice but to go on my own. And since today would involve negotiating with adults, it was better for me if no one close to me was around. Can you manage that? I'll be fine. I clenched my fist to show strength. Lutz looked like he wanted to say something, but he kept it to himself and just said, later, before heading to the forest. I had gone to Benno's store before, twice if you included me visiting Otto's home. Going on my own wouldn't be an issue at all. After filling my usual tote bag with my stone slate pen, and supply order stuff inside, I started walking to Benno's. Okay, I'm going to finish as much stuff as possible today. Good morning. Oh, Mr. Mark, is Mr. Benno here? I brought the supply order. I entered Benno's store, which must have been in a busy period due to how many customers were coming in and out of it, and rushed up to the first familiar face I saw. The young master is presently busy, so I will handle them in his stead, said Mark, holding out his hand. I took the supply order out of my bag and handed it to him. That included the ink and tape measure I had used to write it. I would like to directly discuss this order with the craftsman as we talked about yesterday. Can you make an appointment for that? Lumber yards tend not to be busy in the morning, so we can go now if you wish. Would that be okay? The store looks pretty busy right now. I looked over at the employees dealing with the constant stream of customers, and Mark gave me a smile that resembled Otto's dark merchant grin. I have not raised these employees to be so weak that they could cry over my absence, he said flatly. It sure looks like some of the employees are about to cry. Uh-oh. Not to mention that, as the young master said himself, you are quite the special customer. He decided that it is best if I personally take care of you when you arrive. Worry not. Okay. Thank you. I left Benno's store with Mark and began walking. Our destination was the lumber yard by the west gate and the market. It was close to the river, so that made it convenient for lumber yards to be near there, since that's where the shipping boats came in. I had something I wanted to ask Benno, but since he's busy, can I ask you instead? While walking along Main Street on our way to the plaza, I started talking about what I couldn't in the store. I would like to borrow a storage building, or like a workplace to put everything. We had been told we could order what we needed, but we didn't have anywhere to put all the stuff. Judging by how Mark was blinking his dark green eyes, he must not have expected me to ask about that. What was your plan before now? We were going to split the tools between our homes and carry them to the well or river whenever we needed to use them, but our initial plan involved using makeshift replacements from what we already had available at home and in the forest. I was going to beg my mom for the pot and the ashes, and we were going to cut the trees right in the forest. Ordering these things saved me from having to do that, but in turn, we suddenly had a lot more stuff to take care of, and we needed a place to put things we weren't using that day. But neither Lutz nor my home had a spare room or the leeway to leave unimportant things, unimportant to our families at least, lying around. Essentially, you need a place to store things that they won't accidentally grab, like your clay tablets before, or not the clay tablets, the wood you needed before. We only have so much space to put things, and at this rate, it'll be hard to do our work. Nothing would help us more than a workspace with a roof. I'm asking for help, but I know it's probably unreasonable, or does the contract include things like this? I said, Unbelievable, Mark murmured, rubbing his temples. I see you are prepared to push yourself unreasonably far. We didn't have any adult allies until now. There was very little children could do without the help of an adult. I had earned Benno's help with my shampoo as leverage, and I intended to exploit it as much as possible. If I missed this opportunity, I would no doubt be unable to make paper for the rest of my life. Now was the time to play my hand to the fullest, not to meekly hold back and risk everything. I see. In that case, I will negotiate in your favor for a storage building. Thank you so very much. With you at my side, I feel like we've already gotten one. Judging from how they interacted before, Mark was probably Benno's right-hand man, his trusted confidant, the fist that executed his orders. If Mark negotiated on our behalf, there was no doubt that we would get our storage building. Are there any particular requirements you have for the storage building? We'll be going to the forest a lot, so I would appreciate one close to the south gate. Other than that, all we need is a place with a roof to put the stuff we order. I understood. We're almost there. That's the lumber yard over there, said Mark, pointing up ahead, but I was too short to see anything. Not even jumping made me tall enough. I can understand the feeling. I took Mark's hands and sped up my pace. Let's hurry then. Then, the moment I started eagerly power walking in the direction of the lumber yard, my knees suddenly gave in and I fell unconscious with a choke. Great, you pushed yourself too hard. When I woke up, I was somewhere I didn't recognize. I was in a bed covered with a thick cloth that felt amazing since it meant no straw was poking into me. It was a simple room that even had clean ceilings, but I didn't recognize it at all. Where am I? I sat up to look around and saw Karina, who was sewing nearby. Oh, that's her place. She heard my voice and stopped her sewing to race to my side. Dear mine, have you awoken? I truly thought my heart would stop when my Benno carried you inside, saying that you had collapsed without warning. Otto once said that walking to the gate once left you immobile, so we assumed your illness was born of exhaustion and took you to bed to rest. I appreciate your kindness. I'm really sorry about this. I screamed on the inside while groveling on the bed. I had passed out on the way to the lumber yard and gotten carried to Karina's home by Benno, which, suffice to say, wasn't a pleasant experience to anyone involved. Mom and Tuli would probably yell at me if they found out. I gotta apologize to Mark. He probably came close to dying of shock after I collapsed mid-conversation right in front of him. I could tell retrospectively why I had collapsed. First, I was sleep-deprived due to thinking about what Lutz had said. Second, I was really pushing myself really hard to finish everything while he was away. On top of that, I was so enthusiastic about how well everything was going that I didn't take the time to think about my own health. There was nobody nearby who understood my health well enough to stop me from pushing myself too far. I had the motivation, but my body just wasn't keeping up. This body sure is a piece of junk. When it comes to that, yes, but that's the devouring's fault, not yours. I shall contact Benno and inform him that you have awoken. I would have liked to contact your family immediately, but it seems that it could not be arranged. That made sense. Nobody was home today. Plus, my family thought I was with Lutz. They definitely didn't expect that I would go to Benno's store on my own and pass right out. The thought of my dad going on a mad rampage of worry was honestly pretty scary, and I didn't even want to imagine how furious Mom would be that I bothered Karina like this. Miss Karina, can you keep this a secret from my family? Mine? I thought I would be with Lutz, so if they hear about this, he might get in trouble. I tried using Lutz as a shield to escape my family's wrath, but Karina beamed an angelic smile and shot me down. I'm afraid not. Those who deserve trouble shall receive it. No! As I flailed in bed, terrified over the scolding I was now fated to receive, someone contacted Benno. I heard his loud footsteps marching this way moments prior to him flinging the door open and coming inside. He glared at me with his dark-red eyes and spoke in a low voice. Girl, you took a year off my life. Oh my god. You freaked him out. I'm sorry. Benno's intense glare was so terrifying that I reflexively began groveling on the bed, slurring my words. I was literally rubbing my face against the bedsheets. Please forgive me. The hell are you doing? Groveling is the number one way I know to express sincere regret. Benno sat on the bed and let out a heavy sigh as he scratched his milk tea-colored hair. I heard from Otto that you're sickly, but I didn't expect you to be this unhealthy. Me neither. I made a big mistake trying to do stuff without Lutz. In my Arano days, this would have been no issue, but I couldn't let myself think like that anymore. Mine's so weak and sickly that collapsing after what I did was inevitable. This is a problem that motivation alone cannot solve. Benno murmured. Well, alright. He gave me a hard look. Always come with the boy from now on. No operating alone. Okay. I had no idea that just by going somewhere without Lutz, I ran the risk of passing out. Being able to walk to the forest made me cocky enough to think the entire city was well within my domain. No, it is not. Especially with how big the city looks from like a faraway view. Good lord. Go home for today. Mark will see you. Go away. No, you're not. Oh my god. Here, I thought I could get something done. Go home for today. Mark will see you off. You sure worried the hell out of him. I couldn't ask him to do that. I'll apologize to him and then go home on my own. No, girl, this is what got you in the mess in the first place. I said, waving my hands in front of me with eyes wide open. I couldn't bother Mark more than I already have. However, Benno pinched my cheek and glared at me, his gaze sharp. Didn't hear me? I just said no more doing things alone. I heard you. Okay, I'll go home with Mark. But since you're here, at least let me tell you how to make the simple all-in-one shampoo. I started to suggest that we do what I set out to accomplish in the first place, but Benno, looking furious, grabbed my head with one of his hands. What is wrong with you? I said go home. I shook in fear as he shouted at me with my head locked in his hand. Is your head really that small, girl? Seriously. As I looked up at Benno with reflexive tears brimming in my eyes, an extremely trivial thought arose in the corners of my mind. I see, this is definitely like being struck by lightning. You are no longer allowed in my store without the boy. If you've got a brain in that head, don't forget that. I'll remember, I won't forget. Ow, ow, ow! Afterward, I briefly tried to say that I could walk home without being carried, but Mark gently threatened me by saying, if you don't want my heart to stop, please allow me to carry you. And then sealed the deal by saying, was your apology mere words? I had no way to resist that. Just let him carry you, girl. I gave up my futile resistance and let Mark carry me home. My family saw him carrying me and asked him what happened. They got mad, just as expected. I caught a fever during the hours of lectures and ended up bedridden for 2 days straight. Great. When my fever went down, I figured it might be best for me to go on a pilgrimage of apologizing to everybody I had bothered. I asked Thule what she thought, and she told me that while apologizing was important, everyone would prefer it if I just didn't push myself so much. And that's what happened. Please go with me today so everyone doesn't get mad. A day after my fever went down, I explained what happened to Lutz and requested that he go to the Gilberta Company with me. Lutz gave me a look dripping with exasperation and then let out a heavy, heavy sigh. That's why I asked if you were going alone, you know. I knew you'd need help. That's what all that meant. I just thought you wanted to know if I knew the way there. Lutz? How the heck did you take it like that? When it comes to you, what else is there to worry about except your health? 'Cause I mean, you know how to get there. Why would he even think to ask you that? That makes no sense. I pursed my lips, pouting as Lutz laughed. He looked at me with a relieved grin. If you're gonna pass out in no time on your own, guess I gotta stick with you, huh? Uh-huh. Benno said I wasn't allowed in the store if you're not with me. Huh. Seriously? He said that? Lutz was for some reason in a good mood after hearing me report my failures, despite how obviously down I was. That was better than him being depressed, but it kinda ticked me off. I was so worried about what he said that I couldn't sleep and was afraid to see him. Why is he acting so normal? I guess it took him a bit to accept what you said. Alright, Mine, don't look so pouty, let's go. Lutz lined up next to me, acting like an older brother, and off we went to the store. What did you gather at the forest the other day? Firewood and bamboo. You're the one who said I should carve the bamboo to show the craftsmen what we need, remember? Oh yeah, I did. I forgot all about that. Indeed, I had totally forgotten that I had planned on making a real-life example in case my explanation and illustration wasn't enough for the craftsmen to understand what we wanted. Come on now, get a grip. It's okay, you're staying on top of things for me. There was no way I could remember everything without taking memos. Back in my Arano days, I was a notepad monster. I would write everything down I could into a notepad so I could remember. Anything written on a notepad would be safely forgotten, and I became so reliant on that convenience that my memory probably suffered a lot for it. Ooh, that's not good. I told Let's that we could just remember stuff together, that way we'd overall forget less. He frowned, looking a little close to tearing up. To tell the truth, I started to kinda hate myself after seeing that you could write, do math, and deal with adults like that. That might be part of the reason why he got upset the other day. What? You didn't need me. I started to think I wouldn't be any help at all to Benno's store. Nobody in the store would suggest that a pre-baptism child needed to be useful immediately. Mark valued Lutz quite highly for being able to write his own name and for taking his studies seriously. Lutz just didn't notice that and got depressed after comparing himself to me. You don't need to compare yourself to me, I started, trying to console him, but he stopped me with a smile. But, now I get it. You collapse in no time. You're smart but careless. You're weak, you're tiny, and thinking about it, there's a ton of things you can't do. Now you can't even go into the store without me. So mean, Lutz. I'm useful to people too sometimes. He was being so harsh that I started to protest, but for some reason he started laughing so hard he had to clutch his stomach. He's teasing you. And making himself feel better in the process. After laughing for a bit, Lutz placed a hand on my head and gave it a rub. I was being a jerk when I asked if you weren't mine. Sorry. Really? That was just you being mean? Unbelievable. I had taken what Lutz said extremely seriously, but to him, he was just being mean. I felt the tension draining from my body. That's a relief. I thought you hated me now. Huh? Nah, definitely not. Come on, let's go. Lutz held out a hand. I took it and we walked off holding hands. I felt I had returned to my normal daily life. Good morning. We entered the store and found Mark, who took us to Benno's room. Benno glared at me with his sharp eyes, rubbing his temples, then looked at Lutz. Boy, your highest priority is now protecting that ridiculous little girl. Think of it as your most important job here that only you can do. Got it? I don't have enough hearts to survive hearing about her collapsing without warning around town. Lutz, upon hearing Benno's displeased orders, pointed himself with his eyes sparkling. I'm the only one that can protect her? You think anyone else is going to bother keeping tabs on her? Has anyone else put up with her nonsense? They're just going at her. No. You think someone in the store is going to? No. Lutz immediately shook his head at each of Benno's questions. It probably wasn't any imagination that there was a proud look in his light green eyes. Want to squeeze his cheeks for getting all proud on me. Alright, boy, tell me, do you think the girl could walk all the way to the south gate today? Yeah, if she walks slowly, and the south gate's so close to her home that she can go back as soon as she starts feeling bad. As always, it felt kind of bad that listening to my family knew more about my body than I did. I had intended to build up her strength, but I still had next to no stamina. It just doesn't make sense. Aren't kids supposed to grow like crazy? I looked down at my body, which in fact had not grown like crazy at all. Before long, Benno rang the bell on his desk. The door opened and Mark walked in. You called, sir? She can make it if she walks slowly. Take her there for me. As you wish. What? Where are we going? The lumber yard's by the west gate, right? I didn't have any business by the south gate. Their storage building. Hello? Benno gave a slight shrug as I blinked in surprise. Mark told me what you said. I'll lend you a storage building close to the south gate. Really? Thank you very much. I jumped up in thanks. Benno just said, it's not for your sake, it's for the boys. He wouldn't survive if he had to carry all that stuff around and keep an eye on you. True. If I can carry stuff too, I'm a lot stronger than I used to be. I tapped my right arm to show my strength, only to be shot down by all three of them at once. Don't try and do things you can't. Let the boy handle it. It's my job to do the heavy lifting. Don't do anything that'll make you pass out. There's no need for you to carry things yourself. Please focus on managing your health. Thank you. How about no? I can't let other people do everything for me. I made a promise with Thule. I'll do what I can, and I'll increase the number of things that I can do. If there's something that I can do on my own, I'll do it. And if there's something I can't do, I'll work hard until it becomes possible. I nodded to myself, stealing my resolve, when Lutz suddenly pinched my cheek and leaned in close, looking in my eyes. Mine? I know that look. You're just pretending to agree, aren't you? You're not listening to us at all. He got you! He got you! He saw through me! He rubbed my cheeks while looking up at Lutz in surprise. Benno and Mark shared a look, then nodded. That day marked the day that Lutz became Mine's manager, an inevitable role within Benno's company. Invaluable role within Benno's store. He got you. Okay, it's not that long. Ordering tools and materials. What page am I on? 75 of 320. Oh my god. After leaving Benno's store, Mark guided Lutz and me to our storage building by the south gate. The area around the south gate had become something of a craftsman's alley, so there were plenty of warehouses, storage buildings, and so on. Craftsmen used water more than most, so there was already more wells than there were in residential districts too. The storage building Mark guided us to was indeed right next to a well. It wasn't that large, maybe about as big an extremely large closet. The walls still had several shelves nailed into them, indicative of how a craftsman used to use this building as store materials. The floor was clean, and although things were a little dusty, I didn't need to go on a cleaning rampage. I looked around and saw that there was already a pot and a big bag of something placed in the corner. We are operating such that the goods are delivered to our store, and then an employee takes them here. We took the pot and set ashes here yesterday, as you can see. Today we'll be bringing a large tub and weights. Please stay here until they arrive. Mark pointed at the black pot. I felt gratitude towards Benno well up from the bottom of my heart. Here before us was a pot that Lutz and I never could have gotten on our own. Wow, a pot, Lutz. Do you think we could carry this pot? Yeah, that should be okay, especially since I can stick it in my back carrier. Really? Okay, let's start measuring. We need to figure out how big the steamer needs to be. I still had the stuff to write supply orders in my tote bag. I took out the tape measure, but Lutz snatched it out of my hands. Nothing wrong with measuring, but wait a bit to calm down. You'll get sick again if you get too excited. Mark smiled at our little exchange. There seems to be no problems with the storage building, so I will return to the store. We are planning to go to the lumberyard tomorrow, so please finish all preparations and measuring ahead of time. I'll be leaving the store at about third bell and should arrive at the plaza not long after. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Thank you for everything. Mark held out a key attached to a chain long enough to wear as a necklace. I will entrust the key to the storage building to the both of you. Please remember to lock it behind you and be sure to return the key to the store afterward, even if Lutz must go alone. Understand? Lutz took the heavy-looking key and Mark left. Lutz, what should we do first? The storage building had been unused for a bit, and thus lacked a box or chair or anything for us to sit on. There was nowhere to rest. The floor. Use the floor. Guess we better start bringing our stuff in. The frame you've made, the bamboo, the nails. That's a good idea. We need to decide how big of a steamer we want today and write down what size of wood we need, right? I'll check the supply orders I've written to make sure I've not forgotten any wood we need. Also, I guess we'd need to make the bamboo strips examples here. Yeah, since we'll be needing tools for that. I wrote what we needed to do today on my slate and rested it against the storage building's wall. With that done, I didn't need to worry about forgetting anything. Lutz and I went home together and began carrying things to the storage building. I had no idea where we were due to my lack of familiarity with the city, but Lutz was on top of things and walked steadily in the direction of home through thin, winding alleys. As I wondered just how close it was to my home, we arrived, and I learned that the answer was pretty close. Very nice for someone with as little stamina as me. Alright, put your stuff in a basket and bring it down. Okay. The only thing we needed from my place was the nails. Lutz's family consisted of carpenters and builders, so if the nails were left at his home, it was very likely that someone would accidentally take them, or otherwise intentionally steal them. On the other hand, the frame and the bamboo would be mistaken as firewood and burned at my home, so we left them at Lutz's place. Isn't that a danger for Lutz's place too? I put the bag of nails and my knife in a basket, then threw in a large rag and broom that caught my eye. There wasn't anything I could sit on in the storage building, so I at least would like to clean the floor and spread out the rag to sit on. I climbed down the stairs, and Lutz was already waiting for me, his basket filled with various wood things. What's all that stuff, Lutz? Things that Ralph messed up building today. I was thinking we could use them as chairs. Ah-ha-ha, and I brought a rag so we could clean a place to sit. We returned to the storage building, placed the nails on top of a shelf, and lined up the bamboo in the corner. I then took out my tape measure to measure the size of the pot and decided on what size steamer we needed. I wrote how long the wood needed to be on the stone slate. We're good now, right? Uh-huh. We needed a lot of wood for the lumber yard, materials for the steamer, lumber to beat fibers, a long flat board, and a stand to serve as a draining bed, a relatively thin board to stick the paper onto for drying, bamboo for making strips out of it, and the wood to turn into paper. I looked over the supply orders and considered which kind of wood would be best for each thing. Hardwood, softwood, thoroughly dried wood, young wood, etc. Guess we just gotta get to work on the bamboo now. Can you shade them down? They need to be smaller and thinner than the mockin were. Yeah, those were big enough. Don't know how well small strips will go. Let's took the lead and started making strips out of the bamboo. It was possible to do long, sweeping cuts and accomplish a lot really fast. But getting the strips properly thin was hard. I could tell he was struggling with it. I'll try too. Maybe I'll be good at detailed work like this. I took out my knife and tried cutting the bamboo thin, but most of it just snapped in half midway through. When I tried going slower to not break them, they ended up covered in bumps and ridges, making them unusable. This is really hard. We had to cut a bunch of bamboo strips to fit the length of the frame. This was work best left to a professional. It would take too much time and skill for us to manage alone. I'm here with the delivery. In the midst of our working, an employee from Benno's store brought a large tub and weights just heavy enough for Lutz to use on his own. I had the employee place them next to the pot. Mind, now that we've gotten the delivery, let's close up for today. Lutz started packing up his tools after the employee left, but it wasn't even noon, which meant that I still had plenty of energy left. But I'm still feeling fine. Tomorrow's going to be real busy. You should rest today. Didn't you say you were on food duty tonight? Oh yeah, that's right. My turn to make food had passed while I was bedridden. Tuli had taken care of it in my place, and so today I was doing it for her in turn. Plus, I gotta do some extra chores today, so I have the spare time to go to the lumber yard tomorrow. So yeah, let's go home already. I'll get the key back to them after walking you home. I nodded, aware that I was presently dead weight, and started getting my stuff together. The next day, we met up with Mark in the little plaza a little after third bell, and went to the lumber yard. Benno opened his store a little before second bell, so the time from then to third bell was the busiest for them. Since Lutz was with us today, we safely reached the lumber yard without me passing out along the way. There were logs stacked in pyramid shapes and leaning against walls in a way that made the whole place look somewhat similar to the lumber yards in Japan. The main difference was that there were no machines here, so the whole yard completely consisted of extremely muscular macho men walking around, shouting to each other while carrying and chopping the wood themselves. The word lively fit this place to a T. It was so lively it was honestly kind of scary. Hello, Foreman. It's been some time. Ah, Mark, huh? How's that kid Benno doing? Quite well. As for my business today, these two are looking for wood. Mark greeted the lumber yard's foreman, a bald guy with streaks of gray in his bristly beard. This little girl and boy, the heck kind of wood are they looking for? The burly foreman, whose muscles contradicted his age, looked down at me with surprise, and I had to stifle a squeak. I want wood to make a steamer. Ah, you want what kind of wood? He repeated his question, looking confused. I stumbled for words. Lutz and Mark recognized that I meant what I meant by steamer, but maybe this foreman didn't. Or maybe I just had to specifically describe the kind of wood I wanted. Yeah, that's probably what you had to do. I want I want hard, dry wood that won't change shape from being exposed to steam. What kind of wood is that? Dry and hard wood, huh? Go away! Alright, I've got an idea of what you want. The foreman nodded to himself and listed 3 names. Schwalnus, Trocknen, and Pettibay sound about right. Which you want? I can't really make an informed decision here. What do you think, Lutz? I didn't recognize any of the candidates. Turning my side, I looked up at my friend. I'm guessing Schwalnus will be the easiest to work with. Then we'll order Schwalnus. Have you decided on the size? Said Mark. I nodded in reply and took out the supply order from my tote bag, then had Mark look over it to make sure there were no mistakes. Everything seems to be in order. Foreman, please cut the Schwalnus to these specifications and bring them to our store. The foreman took the supply order, and after running his eyes over it, handed the board to a young macho man walking nearby with a curt. You got work to do. I would also like a thick board of wood that likewise won't change shape when wet, plus a stand to put it on. We sell wood, but we don't make stuff out of it. If you want a stand, go to a furniture place or make it yourself. Want more smallness for it? I gave a firm nod and handed over the supply order for the thick board of wood. He gave a snort while looking it over. I then handed him yet another one. Sure are buying a lot, huh? I still have more too. I would like 2 kind of thin boards that are fine getting wet. How thin? Even the hardest wood'll get all bendy if it ain't thick enough, said the foreman. I searched my memories. I envisioned a board with paper stuck on it, then slapped my hands together. I took out my stone slate and started to sketch a drawing onto it. I would like it to be just thick enough that it won't bend with supports like this holding it up. We need it to be light so Lutz can carry it, since I definitely won't be able to. Huh. Anyone who can't carry that much wood is a failure of a man. Ooh. There was no point comparing Lutz to this extremely muscular foreman. I turned to look at Lutz a little worried, but his face scrunched up before I could say anything. I'm a real man, it'll be fine. Lutz was acting tough and would probably suffer for it later, but it would probably hurt his manly pride if I said anything, so I kept quiet. I also want hard rectangular lumber shaped kind of like a club or a laundry stick. It needs to be small and light enough for Lutz to carry around and swing. Clubs and laundry sticks are a lot different, lassie. What are you going to be hitting? I had just said things used to hit other things, but now that he mentioned it, a club used as a weapon would definitely be different from the laundry stick that Mom used to hit her clothes. Wood fibers. We're gonna boil wood until it's soft, then hit it until the fibers are fluffy like cotton. What for? That's a secret. I made an X of my fingers over my mouth, to which the foreman snorted. The weight and the hardness balance is real important. Gotta ask, what kind of block are you gonna be hitting it on? Stone? Wood? That'll change everything. I felt the blood drain from my face. I had completely forgotten that we needed a block for hitting the wood on. I didn't think about that. Right, I need a block for hitting things. Can I ask for a block and club together as a set? I'll write the supply orders right now. If you're going to order them as a set, you can just add it to that one, girl. You can write? Yes. With my head full of my unexpected mistake, I immediately took out the ink, pen, and measure from my tote bag and started adding a description from the block beneath the club. Foreman, is this okay? Yeah. Is that all? No. I would also like wood with lengthy, strong fibers. If possible, I would like the fibers to be sticky, such that I can get a lot of fibers that stick together easily. I've heard that trees about a year old are good for this. After 2 years, their fibers harden and get more knotty, which isn't good for what I want. I would like soft young wood. I gave a description of wood that would be good for papermaking, but the foreman didn't have the best reaction. He stroked his beard while furrowing his brows. We don't deal with young wood like that because it's not that useful. Apparently lumber yards don't deal with 1-year-old trees unless they were specially ordered. If there's any wood that fits those conditions, would you tell me the species of tree? I don't know which trees are good for what I want, so my plan is to experiment with various kinds. Would you order some if I settle on one type? All I can say is, it depends on how much. Too little, and it won't be worth it for us. I understand. Lutz, do you know the names of trees around here and where they can be found? I'm sure they'll all look the same to me. It seemed that we were stuck with finding the best wood to make paper on our own. After making our prototypes and finding which wood was the best, we could move into mass production and order the wood we wanted in bulk. As a young macho man taught Lutz about how to identify various kinds of wood, I showed the foreman our strips of bamboo and asked a follow-up question. Oh, also, I want bamboo strips like these. Do you sell bamboo here? Not much, but some. The foreman pointed further inside past the pile of wood I could see with a bit of familiar bamboo inside. Could you make strips like these for us? That kind of detailed work is for specialists. Ask a craftsman. A craftsman, okay. Thank you very much. That's all I'll be ordering today. I just gotta deliver it to all the Benno store when it's ready, yeah? Asked the foreman, looking at the last supply order. All the supply orders I had given him were under Benno's name. Since he was funding our paper making in return for the rights to the simple all-in-one shampoo, he ended up as the one ordering the material on all the forms. He told me that it was very important from the perspective of the contract magic that the goods be delivered to his store first, then given to us. Yes, thank you for your assistance. I watched the foreman get back to work. While waiting for Lutz to come back, I checked my bag to make sure I didn't miss any supply orders. I still had the order from the stand, which I had been told to give to a furniture maker, and the order for the bamboo strips, which I had been told to give to a craftsman. What should I do about the stand for putting the draining board on? I mean, the hitting block is one thing, but I don't think we should go so far as to ask a specialist to make a simple stand for us. Mr. Mark, do you have some spare wooden boxes in your store that would serve as a stand? I feel it'd be a waste to go to a furniture maker just for something like that. Very well, I will prepare the wooden boxes for you. How many do you need? I want to put a board on top of them, so about 2 of the same size. I would also like 2 or 3 extra ones if possible. They can be different sizes. Mark agreed to get to the boxes for us, explaining that it would be cheaper than ordering them from a furniture maker. We can go to a craftsman tomorrow. Will that be all for today? Yes, thank you very much. The next day we went to the forest and gathered firewood. While we were at it, we searched for wood that would be good for paper making. Lutz was much more familiar with the different types of trees, so I basically left it all to him. The trees genuinely all looked the same to me. I knew that the bark and texture differed between them, but there were so many different kinds that they all blended together. We then went to Benno's store to get the key in order to put what we had gathered in the storage building. Mark greeted us and informed us that he had contacted a craftsman. Holy cow, Mark's like super capable. He works so fast. Of course, he's Benno's right-hand man. What do you expect? He scheduled an appointment with the craftsman for 5 days after we had gone to the lumberyard. We met up in the plaza past Third Bell as usual and headed to the craftsman's place. The craftsman specializing in wood was naturally located in the craftsman's alley by the south gate. Unlike the lumberyard foreman, the craftsman was on the thin side. He had the muscles he needed to do his job, but his slight build emphasized that he didn't need any more muscles than that. His long ashen hair was haphazardly bundled behind his back. It was clear that he didn't care how it looked as long as he was out of his way. What's the job? He had the sharp gaze of an intellectual craftsman, and I couldn't help but squeeze Mark's shirt as he looked me up and down. We would like bamboo strips. When we asked a lumberyard to make them, we were told to go to a craftsman. I took out a bamboo strip from my tote bag and handed it to the craftsman, who ran his fingers over the bumps and ridges. You want them like this? If possible, I would like them perfectly flat and straight strips, but yeah, if this shoddy thing's the best you can do, it was right to come to me. I'll take the job. Are these the raw materials? The craftsman pointed at Lutz's basket, which had bamboo poking out of it. Lutz took the pieces of bamboo we had brought to the storage building yesterday and lined them up next to each other. Is that all? I would also like you to make this screen. Would that be too much? I drew the design on my Stoat slate and explained how to make it, using the messed up strip to emphasize it. Apparently, even my poor explanation was enough for the craftsman to figure out what I wanted. It'll be a real pain, but not impossible. Really? Wow. But I'll need sturdy string to do it. Bring me sturdy string before ordering this, said the craftsman, waving us off, but we couldn't just leave yet. I had no idea what constituted a sturdy string to him. I'm sorry, I'm not sure which kind of string would be sturdy enough for this. Would you show me what you needed? If you're willing to go to a thread store now, I can go with you. The craftsman looked surly and unpleasant on the outside, but was surprisingly helpful. That made me so happy I immediately pumped my fist and said, "Let's go!" only to get hit on the head from behind by Lutz. I turned around holding my head and saw Lutz glaring at me with his green eyes narrowed with frustration. Come on, Mine. Don't get ahead of yourself. You're the one that's going to pass out. It seems that Mine wishes me to carry her today as well. Woo! Mark must have clearly remembered that I didn't like being carried by him, judging by the smile on his face that allowed no debate. I started to steadily back away, but then heard the carpenter speak with an annoyed tone. Are we going or not? We are going, of course. Mine already said we would. Come on. Mark captured me, lifted me up, and then carried me to the thread store. We went much faster since nobody had to match my snail's pace. While being surprised on the inside over how little I was bouncing despite being carried, I sighed into Mark's shoulder. I'm trying my best, but I'm still dead weight. The thread store was also in the craftsman's alley, so it wasn't that far away. But as an adult, mentally speaking, I couldn't bear to have Mark carry me for longer than strictly necessary. He finally let me down at the store, and I stepped inside on my own 2 legs. Wow, there's so much thread. What'd you expect from a thread store? Replied the craftsman calmly, but still, there was an overwhelming amount of thread here. In this city, the stands at the market generally only displayed as much stuff as a single person could carry, and the stores by the main road generally kept the majority of their products in warehouses and closed cabinets to prevent theft. leaving only a few out in the open to serve as samples. It was uncommon to see a store with so much stuff readily on display. Which of these types of thread would be sturdy enough? In Japan, we used raw silk to make sukata strains. But I didn't even know if this world had silk or silkworms at all. It was impossible for me to know which type of thread was sturdy enough for my purposes. Spin silk is the strongest, especially when gathered during the autumn breeding season. Pretty expensive, though. The craftsman asked with his eyes whether I'd buy it, so I in turn looked at Mark. I wasn't the one paying here. The ultimate decision rested on Mark, who was borrowing Benno's wallet. Spin silk is quite fine, but there should be no need to specifically buy silk from autumn. Yeah, but it's still pretty expensive either way. Spin string was apparently quite expensive stuff. The craftsman looked back and forth between Mark and me in surprise, having apparently intended to start with the best stuff and work down from there. Spin silk will be fine. However, I will not forgive failure or complaints. Please finish the product without fail. Mark took the order for bamboo strips and the screen from me and handed it to the craftsman with a smile. You got it? 2 screens the size of a postcard matching our frame. That was the final tool we needed to order. I let out a sigh of relief now that was all done. The next day, I waited at the storage building until everything was delivered. Once it was, Litz and I started making the tools we needed. In the interim, we went gathering in the forest, did chores at home to avoid our family's ire, and gathered our raw materials. We needed edible fruit, or the juices of a shram bug, but for now we were using edible fruit. The juices of an edible fruit were sticky, and during winter preparation it was common for soak rags in them for use in blocking gaps in windows. Due to that, their price would soon be rising, and fewer of them would be on the market. We're planning to switch to shram bugs if we ran out of edible fruit. Mark and Lutz went to buy edible fruit on their own, while I was sick with a fever. Mark said that it was a good opportunity for Lutz to build up experience working without me, which made me wonder if I was butting in a little too much. In any case, by the time everything arrived and I was healthy enough to start making paper, a month and a half had passed since I first met Benno and declared that I would make paper for him. Okay, I think I'm going to have to end this part off here. I'll see you guys next time.